Far below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, there is a place so deep that sunlight has never reached it. Not once. No sunrise. No color. No sky. Just pressure, darkness, and silence that has existed for millions of years. And yet, something lives there. At nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, the Mariana Trench is the deepest known place on Earth. If Mount Everest were dropped into it, the peak would still be underwater. That's how deep it is. But the depth is not the most dangerous part. It's the pressure. At that level, the weight of the ocean above you presses down with over 1,000 times the force you feel right now. Enough to crush metal. Enough to collapse bone. Enough to destroy almost anything built for the surface world. For decades, scientists believed nothing could survive there. No movement. No life. No possibility. But that assumption was wrong. Because the deeper we go, the stranger things become. This is a journey from the surface of the ocean all the way down to the deepest place on Earth. A descent through layers of light, shadow, and total darkness. A world where survival depends on adaptation, not strength. And the deeper we go, the less the ocean feels like Earth, and more like another planet. At the surface, everything feels familiar. Light dances across the water. Waves move with energy. Life is everywhere. Fish, birds, whales, ships, movement never stops. This is the part of the ocean we understand. The part we can see. The part we think we know. But even here, something important is happening. Tiny organisms drift through the water, almost invisible. Phytoplankton. They capture sunlight and turn it into energy. Just like plants on land. They form the foundation of the entire ocean. Everything depends on them. Without them, nothing below would survive. Small creatures feed on them. Larger fish feed on those creatures. And the cycle continues. It's simple, but powerful. And it only exists because of one thing. Light. Because once the light disappears, everything changes. As we descend below 200 meters, the sunlight begins to fade. Colors disappear first. Red, orange, yellow, gone. Only blue remains. And even that begins to weaken. The water grows colder, heavier, quieter. You are entering the twilight zone of the ocean. A place where light still exists, but only barely. Shapes become harder to see. Movement becomes slower. And life begins to adapt in ways that feel almost unreal. Because in this half-lit world, visibility is survival. And many creatures have solved that problem in one extraordinary way. They create their own light. Small flashes, soft glows, sudden bursts in the dark. Bioluminescence. Up to 80% of animals here can produce light inside their own bodies. Some use it to hide, matching the faint light from above so predators below can't see them. Others use it to hunt, luring prey closer before it's too late. And some use it to communicate. Signals in the dark, a language made entirely of light. And then there are the hunters. The anglerfish waits in complete stillness, a single glowing lure hanging in front of its mouth. In a place where food is rare, curiosity can be deadly. A small fish drifts closer, 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 and then it disappears. No chase, no warning, just silence again. Because down here, energy is everything. Nothing moves unless it has to. Nothing wastes effort. Everything is calculated. Everything is patient. And this is still not the deep. Because below this, light disappears completely. Below this point, light disappears completely. Not dim, not fading, gone. From here on, the ocean is in permanent night. This is the midnight zone, a place where no sunlight has reached for millions of years. No shadows, no colors, only black water stretching in every direction. At around 1,000 meters below the surface, the pressure has already increased more than 100 times what you feel right now. And it keeps rising. Every 10 meters you go deeper, the weight increases. Layer by layer. Relentless. Unforgiving. And yet, life continues. But it doesn't look anything like the life above. Creatures here are not built for speed. They are built for survival. Soft bodies. Flexible structures. No air-filled spaces. Because anything filled with air would collapse instantly. Instead, these animals are made of something closer to water itself. They don't fight the pressure. They exist within it. And because food is so rare here, everything moves differently. Slower, more deliberate, more patient. Some creatures don't hunt at all. They wait. They drift in place, letting food come to them. From above, a constant, slow fall of organic material. Dead plankton, fragments of life, waste, dust from the surface. Scientists call it marine snow. But there is nothing abundant about it. By the time it reaches this depth, it is barely enough to survive on. Which is why nothing here wastes energy. A fish may wait hours, even days, for a single opportunity. And when it comes, it must be taken. The gulper eel appears out of the darkness. Long, thin, almost fragile. But its mouth opens wider than its entire body. An enormous, expandable jaw designed for one thing: taking advantage of rare moments. Because in this world, you don't get many chances. And then there's the black swallower. A fish that can consume prey twice its own length, 10 times its own weight. Its stomach stretches until it becomes almost transparent. Because survival here isn't about finding food often. It's about making one meal last as long as possible. And sometimes that meal is everything. But hunting is only one part of survival. Staying hidden is just as important. In complete darkness, visibility changes. It's no longer about blending into color. It's about disappearing entirely. Some creatures are almost fully transparent. Light passes through them instead of reflecting back. Others are darker than the water itself, so black they absorb nearly all light, making them nearly invisible even when they are close. And then there are creatures that use light in ways that feel almost impossible. The stoplight lucidae, a predator that produces a narrow beam of red light, something most deep-sea creatures cannot even see. It's like hunting with a flashlight that only you can use. It illuminates prey without revealing itself. Perfect, silent, unseen. And this is still not the deepest part of the ocean. Because below this, the pressure becomes something else entirely. By the time we reach 4,000 meters, we enter a region few humans have ever seen. The abyss, a place so vast it covers nearly half of the Earth's surface. Flat, endless, cold. Temperatures drop close to freezing, around 2 degrees Celsius. No sunlight, No sound, no movement unless you look closely. At first, it feels empty, but it is. Life here is just slower, more spread out, more isolated. Creatures move across the seafloor like distant thoughts. The tripod fish stands motionless, balanced on long, thin fins, waiting, not hunting, not searching, just waiting for food to drift past. It could stay like this for hours, days. It doesn't matter, because here patience is survival. Elsewhere, rattlefish glide slowly through the darkness, their movements almost effortless, almost lazy. But it's not laziness, it's efficiency. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed, because rushing here means death. And then something rare happens, something that changes everything in an instant. A shadow appears far above, falling, slowly, silently. A whale. When a whale dies, its body begins a long descent into the deep. Miles down, through layers of darkness, until it reaches the ocean floor. This is called a whale fall. And when it arrives, it creates an entire ecosystem. Suddenly, there is food. A lot of it. Scavengers arrive first, feeding on the soft tissue, stripping the body down over months. Then smaller organisms move in. Worms, crustaceans, bacteria. Even after everything is gone, the bones remain. And deep inside those bones, life continues. Bacteria break down the remaining material, releasing chemicals that support entirely new forms of life. This single event can sustain an ecosystem for decades, in a place where food is almost non-existent. This is everything. It's a reminder of something simple. Nothing in the deep ocean is wasted. Everything becomes something else. Everything continues, even in the darkest places on Earth. But even this is not the bottom, because below the abyss, there is one final descent, one place deeper than anything else, a place so extreme, it challenges the limits of life itself, the Mariana Trench. And at the very bottom of that trench, there is a point known as the Challenger Deep, the deepest known location on this planet, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. A place so remote, so isolated, that even today we know almost nothing about it. And yet, something is there, waiting. Far below the abyss, where even the slowest creatures become rare, the ocean drops one final time. A sudden fall, a vast, silent descent into something deeper than anything we've seen so far. This is the Hadal Zone, a place named after Hades, the ancient world of the unseen. It begins at around 6,000 meters and continues down to nearly 11,000. The deepest parts of the ocean, the least explored places on Earth. Here, the pressure is beyond anything the human body could survive. Over 1,000 times stronger than at the surface. Enough to crush steel. Enough to collapse almost any structure ever built. The temperature stays just above freezing. The darkness is complete. And the silence feels absolute. There are no landmarks, no familiar shapes, only steep walls of rock falling into a narrow trench carved over millions of years. This is the Mariana Trench, a massive scar in the Earth's crust, formed by tectonic plates slowly sliding beneath one another. The Pacific Plate pushing down, the Mariana Plate bending with it. A process so slow, it's almost impossible to imagine. But over time, it created something enormous. A trench stretching for over 2,500 kilometers. Deeper than Everest is tall. And at the very bottom of that trench, there is a place called Challenger Deep. The deepest point we have ever measured. Reaching it is not easy. In fact, it took humans nearly a century after discovering the trench to even attempt it. Because getting there is not just about going down. It's about surviving the journey. In 1960, two men made that descent. Jacques Piccard, Don Walsh, inside a small submersible called Trieste, a vessel designed to survive pressure that would instantly destroy anything else. For nearly 5 hours, they descended through total darkness, through increasing pressure, through a world that had never been seen before by human eyes. And then they reached the bottom, nearly 11,000 meters down. For the first time in history, humans had touched the deepest place on Earth. And what they found there was not emptiness. They reported movement, life, small creatures drifting across the seafloor, in a place where nothing was supposed to survive. For decades, their observation was debated. Could life really exist under that kind of pressure? Could anything live there? Years later, technology advanced. Cameras improved. And missions returned. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron made a solo descent, again reaching the Challenger Deep. This time with better equipment, better lighting, better cameras. And once again, life was there. Simple, strange, resilient, tiny shrimp-like creatures, translucent, soft-bodied, perfectly adapted to survive where almost nothing else can. Scientists discovered something fascinating. These organisms produce special compounds inside their bodies, molecules that protect their cells from collapsing under pressure. Even more surprising, some create a kind of protective gel, reinforcing their structure, allowing them to exist under forces that would destroy most living things. This changes everything, because it proves something important. Life does not just survive at the edges of possibility. It adapts to them. Even here, even at the deepest point on Earth. But despite these discoveries, the truth is simple. We still know almost nothing about this place. Only a handful of human missions have ever reached it. Only a small number of samples have been collected. And most of what exists down here has never been seen. Not by cameras, not by humans, not by anything from the surface world. Because exploring this depth is incredibly difficult. Submersibles must be reinforced. Robotic vehicles must be carefully engineered. Even then, missions are rare. Short, limited. So much of the trench remains untouched, unmapped, unknown. We rely on sonar, sound waves sent into the darkness, echoes returning with information, creating maps of something we cannot see directly. Satellites help from above, detecting tiny changes in the ocean's surface, revealing massive structures hidden far below. But even with all of this technology, we have only mapped a small part of the ocean floor in detail. Most of it remains a mystery. And that's what makes the Mariana Trench different. It's not just deep. It's unknown. A place where entire ecosystems could exist without us ever knowing. a place where new species might be living right now, completely undiscovered, a place where the rules of life are pushed to their limits. And yet, life continues, quietly, patiently, without recognition, without attention, just like the creatures in the midnight zone, just like the organisms feeding on marine snow, just like the ecosystems built around whale falls. The deepest place on Earth is not empty. It is alive, in ways we are only beginning to understand. And that changes how we see our planet. Because for a long time, we believed we understood Earth. We mapped continents, explored forests, studied the skies. But below the ocean, there is another world. A vast world, larger than all land combined. Hidden, dark, and still largely unexplored. The question is no longer whether we can reach these depths. We have. The real question is, what else is down there? What have we not seen? What have we not discovered? What lives in the places we have not yet explored? Because the deeper we go, the more we realize something simple. We have explored more of space than we have of our own ocean. And somewhere in that darkness, there are answers waiting. For most of human history, the deepest parts of the ocean were not just unknown. They were unimaginable. Sailors crossed vast waters guided by stars, trusting winds and currents, believing they understood the sea. But beneath their ships, there was an entire world they could not see. A world deeper than any mountain is tall. A world where light does not exist. A world that remained hidden for centuries. Early explorers tried to measure it. They lowered ropes into the water, weighted with lead. Simple tools, primitive methods. They would drop the line and wait, and wait, and wait, until it touched the bottom. Then they would measure the length. That was their answer. But the deeper the ocean became, the more unreliable this method was. Lines drifted, currents pulled, measurements became uncertain. Still, one thing became clear. The ocean was far deeper than anyone had believed. In the 1800s, expeditions began pushing further. Longer cables, more precise measurements. Ships like HMS Challenger carried thousands of meters of line, attempting to map the unseen world below. And for the first time, the ocean floor began to take shape. Not flat, not empty, but filled with ridges, valleys, and massive trenches. Hidden landscapes beneath the waves. But everything changed in the 20th century. Because instead of lowering ropes into darkness, scientists started using sound. Sonar, a simple idea. Send a sound wave downward. Wait for it to bounce back. Measure the time. That time reveals the depth. And suddenly, the invisible world below became visible. Sound painted a picture where light could not reach. Wide beams scanned the ocean floor, mapping vast areas in a single pass, creating images of mountains taller than the Alps, endless plains stretching across thousands of kilometers, and trenches so deep they seemed unreal. Today, satellites assist from space, detecting tiny changes in the ocean's surface, subtle shifts caused by massive structures far below. Combining this data, scientists can build three-dimensional maps of the seafloor. Detailed, accurate, expanding every year. And yet, even with all of this technology, we have mapped only a small part of the ocean in high detail. Much of it remains unknown, unseen, untouched, because reaching it is still incredibly difficult. That is why robots are becoming essential. Remotely operated vehicles, autonomous underwater drones, seafloor landers, machines designed to go where humans cannot. They can stay longer, travel deeper, collect data continuously, sending back images of places no human has ever visited. And what they are finding is changing everything. New species, strange ecosystems, life forms that challenge what we thought was possible. The deep ocean is not empty. It is full, full of life, full of adaptation, full of mystery. And the Mariana Trench is only one part of it. Across the planet, similar trenches exist. Deep, remote, almost untouched. Each one potentially holding unique ecosystems. Different species, different conditions, different answers, and all of them connected by the same ocean. A single, vast system covering more than 70% of our planet. Regulating climate, cycling carbon, supporting life on a global scale. The deep sea is not separate from us. It is part of everything. The air we breathe, the temperature of the planet, the balance of ecosystems, all connected, all influenced by what happens beneath the surface, which means understanding the deep ocean is not just exploration. It is essential, because the more we learn about these extreme environments, the more we understand how life adapts, how systems survive, how balance is maintained under pressure. Lessons that extend far beyond the ocean itself. And still, so much remains unknown. Entire regions that have never been seen. Species that have never been documented. Processes that are not fully understood. The deepest place on Earth is not just a destination. It is a beginning, a reminder of how much there is left to discover, and how little we truly know. Because even now, in the vast darkness of the Mariana Trench, life continues, unseen, unrecorded, unimaginable, waiting,